All right. So welcome everyone. Brian, do you want to present our sponsors?
Yes. So we are incredibly grateful to our sponsors and partners, and our key sponsor for the program is the Foster School of Business's Burke Center for Entrepreneurship. At the innovator level, they have also helped us with invaluable consulting on how to put together the program, tips and tricks, and so on and so forth. We also have we had a very generous anonymous donor who was so generous that they pretty much covered a lot of what we needed. So we don't have a lot of sponsors, those are the two of them, but we have a number of partners who have helped us out to spread the word about the program. And you'll recognize many of them. In fact, we have teams from every one of our partner organizations: Seattle University, University of British Columbia, Simon Fraser University, Cascadia College, University of Oregon, and the University of Puget Sound.
And then
it occurs to me, I should pull up the PowerPoint too. Have it handy, but the next part is all yours.
Heather, you're muted.
Okay, great. So welcome everyone. I am the Executive Director of Zero Waste Washington. My name is Heather Trim, and my job tonight is to give you background about our organization and about the zero waste movement in the Pacific Northwest in general. I start with this slide because I am way older than all of you. And when I was a kid, it was a big deal to go on the airplane. You got dressed up. And in fact, what I wanted to draw your attention to is the cigarette in the guy's hand. When I was a kid, and all the way up really for most of my young life, it was normal to have smoking on an airplane. It was absolutely the normal thing. And you never in a million years thought that there would not be smoking on an airplane. It was just the normal thing. And I show this slide because it shows that norms can change. Things that you think are absolutely fixed and are never going to change do change. And I think with COVID, we've really seen that things can change quite quickly. And your generation is going to be, I think, a lot faster at making norm changes than my generation. And so I'm really thrilled that you all are doing this innovation challenge, because this is part of that norm changing that it can occur and really needs to happen, and it can happen. And it's just amazing to even think that we ever thought that smoking was a permanent, never changing thing on airplanes. I got muted somehow. So our mission is to drive policy change for a healthy and waste-free world. And we envision a just, equitable, and sustainable future where we all produce, consume, and reuse responsibly. Next slide. So what we basically do is try to make trash obsolete. And we have three main strategies: helping pass laws at the state and the local level and at the federal level. And I'll talk about that at the further on in the talk. We do research, and we do pilot projects and community-based projects. And this hackathon this year is the first, but we hope it will become a permanent thing. Next slide. So thank you all for joining it this year. We have 7 focus areas ranging from reuse and repair, plastic pollution, toxic chemicals, recycling, innovation, where you all are at, and producer responsibility. And we do hope that the different teams will tackle different aspects of the different problems. And that's part of the reason why I'm talking tonight, is to give you some ideas and give you some context. Note the item in the top left-hand corner, producer responsibility. Our organization about 11 years ago helped lead the charge to pass the best e-waste law in the US. This is a law that says that if you have leftover old electronic devices, you can take them to a place like Goodwill. I'm not sure what the equivalent is in Vancouver. And Goodwill is paid to take the computers and leftover e-waste and to recycle it. It gets paid to be recycled in Washington State, paid for by the manufacturers, paid by Dell and HP and Microsoft, et cetera. Next slide. 2 years ago, we led the charge, but it was a 10-year effort and hundreds of people to do a similar law for leftover used medicine. So if you have leftover medicine in your medicine cabinet, you are going to be able to take in November, it'll be statewide, your leftover medicine to the pharmacy, the sheriff's office, or the hospital, put it in a blue box like this, and it will be safely disposed of, paid for by the pharmaceutical industry. This was the first law in the United States. It is now passed in California and in New York and in Oregon and a couple of other states. And I think actually Vancouver, BC. Do you all know if you have this law there? Anyone from there? Can you take your leftover medicine in? If you don't already have it, I'm sure you'll have it soon. Okay, next slide. So I'm going to start off with some zero waste issues. Next slide. Okay, great. I just got a chat that they do have it. I'm glad to hear that. So this to me is pretty shocking because 2025 is right around the corner. And this is from the United Nations, and it's based on current data that by 2025, we're going to have 1 pound of plastic in the ocean for every 3 pounds of fish biomass. This is really right around the corner, and it really is a serious problem that is something that we need to put a stop to, and we can. Next slide. So this slide is now a few years out of date, but I think the stat would still stand that basically the point of this is that the majority of the plastic that has ever been produced has been in the last, say, 15 years or so. This is really bad news. And if you go to the next slide, same info, but a little bit of a different format. So what happened is, this is from 1950 to 2015. We didn't have plastic as a thing in the world other than some beginning experimental things before World War II. And then since then, we've had an exponential growth in the use of plastic around the world. This graph is around the world. And you can see the use of plastic in different sectors. So for example, the dark blue band is textiles. When I was a kid, we didn't have any clothing that was made of anything other than natural fibers. Then polyester came in, and now there's a whole ton of different types of fabrics that have plastic or are entirely plastic. Note the green, the light green, that is construction. I lived in LA, as you heard before, for many years, and the firefighters down there are very concerned because a lot of the new construction, the homes are made of a lot of plastic siding, plastic doors, plastic flooring. And when the homes burn in those big wildfires that come through, the new homes, they melt first, and then they burn, and it's a very toxic mix that's coming out in those fumes. And the firefighting industry has become very aware and are starting to advocate about this because they are getting cancers that are kind of cancer clusters that you don't get in other sectors. And then look at the blue at the bottom. That is packaging. What I want you to note here in this graph is the dip in 2007, 2008. That was the recession. And I think we're going to see a similar dip when this graph is done out to past 2020. We'll see a similar dip for this year in some of the categories, but maybe not all. Like, for example, packaging. I'm going to explain why in the next slide. So next slide, packaging. So over 30%, so between 30 and 40% of the use of plastic is for packaging. Packaging is a very, very broad category. It goes from bags to bottles to the wrap around your toilet paper to the wrap around your candy bar, but also the little sticker, the little veggie sticker on your produce. So it's a very, very broad category, and it is something that we can do something about. You know, my glasses are made of plastic. That's cool, that's durable, that's gonna last, but it's not something I use once and then toss very quickly. The area that we really wanna focus on are the things, or one of the areas we focus on is this idea of things that you use and toss, which really could be replaced, or you could just do a whole new mode of doing whatever that thing is. Next slide. So this entire slide are things that are not recyclable. They're made of multi-material, and this is what's going on. And if you go to the grocery store now and you walk down the aisles, you see so many things that are in these things called flexible packaging or pouches. So like the top left-hand corner, those are all things that are multi-layer. They're plastic and paper and metal laminated together. and they can't be recycled at this point because you need a material to be its own thing in order to recycle it. The can in the bottom right-hand corner looks like it's metal. It's not, it's plastic. It's a plastic can with a metal top. The two things are bonded together, and that is thus not recyclable. So the thing is there's all this quote unquote innovation of new packaging that comes online, but if you can't recycle it, it is really hard to deal with in our system. And is it just contributing eventually to just plastic pollution as well? Next slide. Then we have this thing called the 3-second shrug. What this means is if you approach a tri-bin, and those of you who are familiar with SeaTac Airport, this is at the SeaTac Airport main area. If you approach these 3 bins and you have something in your hand and you cannot figure out what it's supposed to be, which bin it goes in, after 3 seconds, you give up and you just dump it in whichever bin is the easiest one, closest one to you. This is a big problem because the contamination in each of these streams is a problem, and I could explain each one, but I think you can probably get it. You don't need plastic. You don't want plastic in the food scraps bin. You don't want food scraps in the recycle bin, and you don't want any of that could be recycled or got composted in the trash bin. So this is a very, very major problem we have right now, that the consumers are confused. Next slide. And then, of course, I could do a whole talk, and you've seen them, all about the impacts of plastics on wildlife. We have microplastics now found at every depth of the ocean, everywhere, even Antarctica. There was a plastic bag found in the Marianas Trench, which is the deepest part of the ocean, earlier this year. Plastic marine debris affects over 660 species, and we also are worried about the toxic chemicals that are in the plastics and also attract onto them that then get into the food chain. Next slide. Another major issue with plastics and other materials as well is the issue of our commercial compost. So this is one of our commercial compost facilities in Washington State. The top photo is where all the material comes in and gets dumped. They chop it up, and this is yard waste and food waste, and then unfortunately a lot of contamination. They chop it up and they put it in the back one. They chop it up and put it in these windrows. And these are long rows, in this case covered with a gore fabric, and they pump in air and they let it sit for 90 days, and then they turn it and they let it sit for another 90 days, and then they make a very luscious compost. The bottom photo is that steam coming off in the morning. It was a cold day, and that's like this wonderful lush product of soil amendment that you want to go out and put in our ag areas, our agricultural areas. However, next slide. If you look up close at that pile there, next slide, what you see is plastic. It is full of plastic things, plastic bags primarily, but also plastic forks and things like that, and metal and glass, but primarily plastic. It's a really, really major problem for our compost, and you don't want to then go spread that all over our, along the highways or on the agricultural areas, or even around our homes. Next slide. Okay, so let's talk about the China national sword. So what happened is a couple of years ago, China said, no more, we're no longer going to take the waste of the world. We're not going to take the scrap metal. We're not going to take the textiles. We're not going to take the bales of mixed plastics, bales of mixed paper. Next slide. And the reason that this was happening, at least in the Pacific Northwest, is up to 60% of our commodities, and these are bales of, as you can see in the foreground, bales of water bottles, were going back to China, and you can show the next slide. The reason is because we had container ships that come to the port of Seattle and the port of Vancouver, by the way, and also down south. They were coming over full of goods, and then they were going home mainly empty. So it became very, very cost effective, and this is for the past 2 decades, to send our recyclables and things back in these empty containers so that they could go to China and other Southeast Asian countries to be processed. It was cheaper to take a bale of plastic. That's what I showed you before. A bale of recyclables by container ship from Seattle to China, than to take that same bale from Seattle to Portland, Oregon by truck. That is the dynamic that we had. Next slide. And there was a movie that caused this to happen. It was called Plastic China, and you can see a trailer online. It takes 3 minutes. And what it shows you is what was happening was some of the bales were going to big factories in China, but some were going to mom and pop operations all around China in little cities, little towns, little villages. And I'm not sure exactly, but the people were cutting open the bales and taking out the material that they thought the bale was, like let's say it was water bottles, and then processing those and getting money for those. But then the material that they didn't need in that bale, like other types of plastic, other materials, they were either burning or they were dumping. And it is very toxic to burn plastic. So this was a major, major environmental justice issue. 2 weeks, so this film was shown once in China, and then it was banned. And it was 2 weeks later, China announced the National Sword Initiative of banning the imports unless things met a very high standard. Next slide. So what they did is this is two inspectors in China in one of the ports. And what they used to do is the bales would come in the container ships, and they'd say, okay, they'd inspect them and let them come in with pretty little friction. But then what happened is once this ban went into effect, for 24 different commodities, you could only have a 0.05 contamination standard. That's less than 1% contamination. And contamination means the wrong thing in the wrong bale. So you couldn't have metal in a plastic bale, or you couldn't have paper or food or the wrong kind of plastic. The contamination rates that we had in our bales coming from the Pacific Northwest were 11 to 20% before this ban went into effect. 11 to 20%, and we're talking about less than 1% is what China put in as their standard. So they effectively banned things. They also restricted the import licenses. Now go to the next slide. So why did China do this? Part of it, and a large part of it, is because they wanted to clean up their own environment. And this is the view of Beijing from the CNN Tower on the day of a military parade, and then 3 days later, after the military parade is gone. And you may remember that during the Olympics, there were some restrictions on being able to have factories going. This is a very good thing. China has done us a major favor. They're trying to build their own circular economy and clean up their environment. That is terrific. And they are telling us, you need to deal with your own waste. And this is exactly right. And this is where a lot of innovation can come in by you all on teams, because we really should be dealing with our own waste and doing the circular economy here in Washington. Next slide. So this is a MRF, a material recovery facility. This is where you sort the plastics. And the reason I'm showing you this image is that one of the first things that happens is they dump all the recyclables on these conveyor belts, and they pick out the things that are not able to go through the system. Things that might ruin the equipment, things that might jam the equipment, things that are just might cause an explosion, for example. And what happens though is that you can see that you have round things like the can in the foreground there, and you have flat things like the paper. So 3D and 2D items. The basic function of a MRF is fundamentally to separate the flat things from the round things. The flat things are basically paper and cardboard, and those go into a certain bales, and the round things are containers and go into other types of bales. That is the fundamental function of a MRF. Next slide. But what we do when we send our trucks around to pick up the recyclables is they have automated arms, they pick up the material, and then what they do is they put it in there and they crush it. They crush it flat. And that basically, they're trying to get 30% more material into the truck. And by getting that in there, they can have, and crushing it, they can reduce the amount of trips around the neighborhood. So this is a really good thing from a greenhouse gas perspective, but it's not a good thing in terms of the commodities, because what they're doing is they're crushing the metal cans flat, the plastic bottles flat, and they're turning them into flat items that are hard to separate in the MRF. They also are crushing the glass. And glass is a major contamination in the system, because when you crush the glass, first in the truck, and then later as it's getting dumped in the MRF at the first part of it, you create these teeny little shards of glass, teeny little shards. They're like little needles in a way. And those then stick to everything, and particularly the paper. And then when you have the paper bales go to the mills, the pulp mills, the first thing they have is this big round metal drum. And I could show you photos. I don't have it in this thing, but I could show you another time. The glass shards act like sandpaper, and they ruin the equipment, and they have to replace these multi-million-dollar drum things on a much more frequent basis because of the glass shards. So the point is that we have a system where we're putting everything in one bin, but not in Vancouver, by the way, which is why Vancouver is a good model for us. They put everything in one bin, and then everything gets cross-contaminated. And it's the wrong thing that goes in the wrong bale or causes problems. Okay, next slide. So this is upside down, but this is a bale of paper that I was at a pulp mill in Spokane. And I did a close-up, you know, it looks good. It looks pretty good. This is upside down, but you can see that it looks like paper, right? Mixed paper. And that's what they're going to use to make a pulp that they could use for cardboard and things like that. But next slide. When you looked up close, oh, look at that. A plastic dairy sour cream lid. And you can see that in the middle there. And on the bottom right, you can see a plastic bag. It was full of plastic. And on first glance, you can't tell. But if you open this thing up, you would see a lot of plastic. And that's exactly what they don't want. They only want paper there. They don't want all this plastic. Okay, next slide. Okay, here's another close up. You can see the plastic bag in the middle there, the brown plastic bag. So anyway, and I think that might be a piece of black plastic there as well. It looks like a shoe sole, but I don't think it is. I think it's a piece of black plastic. And then in the lower left, you can see plastic. You can just see plastic throughout. I wish I could point. I know I can't really point, but on the left-hand side, you can see a thing of plastic. This thing is full of plastic, and you really can't tell until you actually really get up close to it. Okay, next slide. So we have a recycling crisis. We have a plastics crisis. But people say, well, what's holding value? So what is holding value in the system actually are these four things. So the aluminum cans, the glass bottles, the number one, which are the PET bottles, like the soda jugs, and I mean soda bottles, and then the jugs, which are number two. They're doing well. Yeah, metal scraps, that's right. The metal scraps are doing fine. So I could have added that. And in fact, now paper did really badly, but paper is rebounding a bit. Okay, next slide. Okay, so now let's change to the concept of food waste and what a big problem that is. So there's this terrific study that was done by the Department of Ecology that was a waste characterization for our landfills. It was done for 2015, and they're in the process of doing one for 2020 right now, which of course will be impacted by COVID. Next slide. This is the stuff that's going to the landfill, not recycling, not compost, in Washington State. And it's from all sectors, and they did it 4 times a year. So it's a really, really high quality study. This is what's going to the landfill. I can't emphasize that enough. 28% of it is organic material, yard waste and food waste and some manure. There is no way that we should be sending any organic material to the landfill. It creates methane gas, and it doesn't go there. It goes to other things. It should not be going to the landfill. And I'm not going to talk too much about the other things, but you can see paper, plastic, all these things, glass, all these metal, all these things should not be going to the landfill. Okay, next slide. So this, you can't see the bottom of the slide here, but this is the topmost 15 prevalent material types from that same study of what's going to the landfill. And I've circled in red squares the food part. So they have edible food and inedible food. And they did a very, very good job of distinguishing edible food. And if you look at the appendix, you can see how they define it. They were very careful to truly define it as edible food, an apple that you could eat. That's a whole apple that was still in very good shape. So the takeaway from this slide is that 17%, almost 1/5 by weight of what's going to the landfill is food waste. If you remember from the previous slide, organic material was 28%. So 17%, almost 1/5 by weight, is food waste. And about half of that is edible food, which is insane. We have hungry people in Washington state. It is criminal that we are sending edible food to the landfill. And then the other 8.8%, the inedible food should be going to compost or going to feed pigs or whatever, not going to the landfill. Next slide. So we fundamentally have two main things that we're trying to do to address the problem of the recycling crisis and the plastics crisis. Reduce the use of unnecessary plastics and build markets and restore our recycling system and create jobs in Washington. And by the way, in Oregon and in Vancouver, BC. So I say Washington because I'm Zero Waste Washington, but I do mean for the entire Pacific Northwest. And in addition, we have other efforts we want to do on food waste. So I should have put food waste on here as well. So our goal overall is to follow this waste hierarchy. From the number one thing that we try to do is prevent the waste in the first place. So bring your own bag, bring your own coffee thermos, don't do a different activity that doesn't generate the waste. Don't do it in the first place, prevention. Then second on the tier is to reuse it. You know, you get it fixed, give it to your friend, give it to Goodwill. Don't just toss things, reuse things, give them a second life, let them go forever as far as they can. Then recycling is the next thing. So, you know, do as much, if you have stuff left that you're not going to prevent or reuse, let's recycle it, and let's recycle it correctly and right and have the technology to do it so that we actually end up with well recycled stuff. Then recovery. Now recovery is a bit of a code word for incineration or waste energy. We strongly oppose waste energy and incineration. I could give you a whole lecture on that, but you don't probably want that tonight. But it is terrible. We do not want to burn the resource. We want to reuse it or in the other things. And then lastly, disposal, which would be primarily going to the landfill. All right. Okay, that was me. And should we pause? You want to go back? Why don't we pause and see if anyone has any comments or questions? And I will open up here so I can see. Does anyone have any comments or questions or thoughts?
You might have noticed what I was commenting in the comment section. It just kind of amazes me how much you know compared to how much I know, because I've been very passionate about zero waste for 3 or 4 years now and doing a lot of personal research and from experience. And it's just kind of nice to meet someone who actually knows just as much as I do.
Well, may I say that your colleagues on this phone, on this call, everyone is going to become an expert pretty quick on different topics. What I always say to people is that when you start working on a topic, whatever it is, and like in your case of your teams, you may know nothing about it. Pretty quick, you know a lot more than other people. You'd be amazed at how fast you can become experts on things. And then, of course, I always feel like I have more to learn. I'm sure you do too, Dustin. It's like, you know, basically, it is amazing how quickly you all will become very well versed in your topics. But thanks for that. Anyone else? Any other comments or thoughts or questions? Hopefully I've given you a lot of things to think about and give you ideas for what you're going to do. And I'm going to turn off my video and let Xenia, you want to carry on?
Mm-hmm. So Heather, thank you so much. You covered a lot of material. And thank you for bringing up all those issues that need solution. That's why we're all here today. And so that was the presentation that Heather usually gives when she's invited to be a speaker. So hello, everyone. My name is Ksenia, and I'm a program manager at Zero Waste Washington. And the second part of this presentation will be about hackathon. That's why we're all here. As Heather mentioned, one of the focus areas for Zero Waste Washington is innovation. And that's why Zero Waste Hackathon was initiated back in April. And we were really surprised to see that it's the very first Zero Waste Hackathon in the region. So the main areas for the hackathon are recycling systems and the new markets for it, food waste and prevention of food waste, reuse and repair, plastics, Heather covered that particular one extensively, and responsible and sustainable design. And I'm sure you all saw that on the hackathon website. So we were really excited to see so many of you apply to the hackathon program. There are 18 teams and 14 individuals who applied to that program from Washington, Oregon, and British Columbia. And we're also very excited to see that all your ideas are covered, basically all the focus areas that we listed on the website. So we have recycling, we have food waste, reuse and repair, plastics, and sustainable design. And now I'm giving the word to Brian.
Okay, thanks, Xenia. I'm Brian Allen. I'm the project manager for the Zero Waste Innovation Hackathon. Actually, just to back up for a second, those 10 categories that are listed on this slide are not everything that you saw when you filled out your registration survey. And some of you are working on projects that don't quite fit in these categories, but these are the primary categories that we are emphasizing for this year. What I'm going to be covering for a few minutes here are our housekeeping issues. We're going to review the team orientation document that you all received in email earlier today. And just to kick off, since I know some of you are primary team contacts, send in your team member info, please. We want to get those emails so that we can make sure that we can email out all the information directly to all of your team members. And if you have not already picked a team name, please do so, if only so that we have something other than the first name of the primary team contact to go with. And judging by who I see on the call, I guess I'm talking to you, Team Ashley. So come up with something, guys. For the we've got 4 individuals on the call right now who are not in a team. Don't worry, we haven't forgotten about you. We've got 2 options, basically. We're still working on getting information from the existing teams if they're looking for extra people. So your first option is to go to one of the teams that is looking for extra people. And it so happens that Team Ashley is one of those. So you'll be finding out about that. Or you can connect with the other 13 individuals who signed up without a team. The way we're going to do this is that you are going to get a message later on tonight, at least for the individuals, because I have all your information already. We're going to send you information about, you're going to get each other's names, your email, what city and state you're in, the institution that you're at, and what were the areas that you were interested in working on. And I believe about half of the individuals already had an idea. And so you'll receive information about those people when you get that. It'll be a link actually to a spreadsheet later on tonight. Next slide. So let's do a quick review of the timeline. You've got this in your orientation packet. Tonight is the orientation, obviously. Next Monday, we begin the first week seminar with the Ideation and Innovation Culture Workshop. We were going to slide some social enterprise stuff into that, but the presenter really wants as much time to work with you as possible and do some interactive sessions with you. So for the very many of you who express an interest in coaching on social enterprise and B corporations, we are putting together a package of information. We do have coaches that will work with the teams individually to help you parse that piece of your project. Week 2, the Monday after next, November 2, is market fit and basic financials. These are very simple analyses of your market fit, very, very basic stuff. And essentially penciling out what you can determine about your idea to figure out whether it's viable at all. And that is really the extent of it. We aren't going very, very deep on markets or marketing and marketing plan. We're not doing a go-to-market plan, although for those existing teams who have already participated in business plan competitions, you may already have that, and that's fine. But you aren't going to be judged on that. This is a lot simpler because this is a very compressed 4-week program. Same thing with the basic financials. You're going to have some judging on that, but not so much that you have to worry about finding an accounting major to help make your presentation look good. The following week is crafting your story, and that's about figuring out the messaging that you want to focus upon to really get the message out about what it is you're trying to do and why people should care about it. The week after that is figuring out the details of how you're actually going to present that, because there are 2 deliverables for this competition, a 1-page PDF and a 5-minute video pitch. There's more detail about that, again, in your orientation package. We'll also be reviewing this in more detail in a few more slides. So 23rd is the due date. That's a date to fix in your minds right now. 12 noon on the 23rd is when we need all the materials from you. Over the next 48 hours, initial judging will be happening for first round to select our final 8 teams, who will then participate in a live video presentation competition on Monday, November 30th, which is being held in conjunction with this year's Waste Summit, which is a Waste Innovation Summit. So I'm going to move on to the workshops. It's very simple. Every Monday, 7 p.m. We'd like you to keep a window open to 8:30 if possible. Some of them might actually go that long. They probably won't. They'll probably be more like 60 to 75 minutes. It'll depend upon how much Q&A time we need, which we want to give you as much of as you like. Note that in your orientation packet, the Zoom meeting ID for these weekly workshops is different than the meeting ID for tonight's workshop. So just make a note of that, or you will be in the wrong workshop on Monday. There are phone numbers listed for the West Coast in the US and Vancouver. If you want to try and find a local number that's closer to where you are, because I know we have at least one person in Colorado right now, which I think was Team Ashley, if I recall correctly. And just click on the find your local number in the team packet. You can find a better phone number to dial locally. If you're just dialing in, hopefully you're using your computer so you can actually see the presentations. The recordings of each session will be available on our YouTube channel. So don't freak if something comes up. We would like you to participate live if you can, because of the Q&A, and especially this Monday, if ideation is the thing you need to work on, you really want to make a point to catch this workshop. All right. Let's go into a little more depth on what exactly is going to be happening each week. Again, next week, Ideation and Innovation Culture. You should be working on your idea that week. And if you already have an idea fleshed out, especially if you're an existing team that is far down the road of developing your idea, you should still try to take this time to explore additional innovations related to that idea and or potential pivots for the future. In general, we want you to get into the habit of continual innovation as a team, because that is part of the entrepreneurial process. Planning is everything, even if the plan may end up being nothing. It's the process of going through the planning that prepares you for eventualities that might trip you up, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. You will be able to begin exploring a resource list with some details about our presenter this Friday, when we'll be sending out a weekly bulletin with information about the following Monday's presentation. Each Friday, you will receive that information in your email. The other week one activities then after the presentation, if you are working away on it and you find you are getting stuck, then contact us to request coach or mentor follow-up support if you haven't already. You're going to have a Slack channel available to do that, as well as email. Week two, market fit and financials, briefly covered that earlier. You are going to be working on developing those aspects of your project plan. And again, if you get stuck, just ask for help. Third week is developing your core messaging, crafting your story. This would be a good time to start working on your one-pager if you haven't already started fleshing something out. It's a good exercise to clarify your thinking about your project and to get a head start on the kinds of visual techniques that you will be using in the following week, presenting your story, where you should definitely be wrapping up your one-pager and be full on working on your video by that week. And again, the Fridays before each of these, you'll have resources of arriving in your inbox that you can check out. All right, the finalists will be, I mentioned that your deliverables are due on the 23rd. The finalists will be announced on the 25th, so you'll have time to get ready for the finals if you make it. There's just two pieces you have to deliver, and how you do it is entirely up to you. A one-page 8.5 by 11 PDF summary of your project that ideally convinces other people that you have a cool project that they want to get involved in and support somehow. As I mentioned earlier, it's a good tool for crystallizing your thinking, outlining your communication strategy. And then you also need to have a 5-minute presentation video. And on the PDF or the video, you can use any tools you wish. It's the final product that matters. We don't care how you get there. We're going to be giving you guys a list of different resources for both deliverables to help you along your way. You need to submit it as an MP4 file and upload it to a drive. And then you're done. Your deliverable is in, due 12 p.m. Monday, November 23rd. I want to emphasize that the presentation video, again, can use any tool set that you wish. Some teams will go all out because they have equipment and experience. They will get a video camera and video each other. Maybe they'll use their phones to video each other. You really only need a phone with a camera nowadays. But you could also do something on Prezi, and if you can figure out a way to generate that into a video, you could then edit it, voice over it, do whatever you want. There are a lot of different options. At the end of the day, it's up to you how you arrive at the final product. And that's the first round. If you make it through, you will get to the final round on November 30th. Xenia is going to tell you a little bit more about the process from that round.
Mm-hmm. So we are going to have your 5-minute videos. Then after each video, we're going to have the Q&A session with jury members. So we're going to have a panel of prominent juries who ask you questions, then deliberate a bit. And in parallel and simultaneously, we're going to have Zero Waste Innovation Summit that will feature prominent zero waste innovators in the zero waste world. So you will get to present, some of you, and also listen to the keynote speakers. And we'll share more details, who will be the speakers, and also a more detailed schedule for that day. Then I'm almost sure that a lot of you are really looking forward to meet coaches and judges. And Brian already mentioned that you will be matched to some of the coaches and mentors, sorry. So I'll just quickly run through some of the people who agreed to volunteer their time and share knowledge and skills with you. A moment of silence.
And this is not a complete list. We actually have a lot more people in the pipeline for you. So it is very, and if we find that you are making a request for a resource that we don't have readily available, we will work to track somebody down for you.
Yep, correctly. And when you applied to the hackathon, you mentioned the areas of support. So we will use that information to match you to mentors and coaches. And in this slide, I want you to meet our interns team. So we were really lucky 3 months ago to hire this team of amazing people. Some of them are now today in this call. So please meet Kelly, Marco, Lisa, Morissette, and Adam. They were of a tremendous help to put the hackathon together. You see the areas of their focus and expertise. So the fact that we are all here together with you, it's thanks to them. And the very final piece of information is whenever you have any questions, you know Brian's email, you have my email. Please let us know. Brian will share more information how to get to the Slack channel, where we use it to communicate among our team. So don't hesitate, wherever we can, we'll be able to provide.
Why don't I speak to that right now? There are a few resources that we're making available to you right away, or at least as quickly as we can get you on board them. The first is the YouTube channel, where you can go back and watch any presentation at your leisure. Be sure that your teammates realize that as well. We use Slack for internal project communications, and we think you'll find it a useful tool as well. So we are going to be inviting you into our Slack workspace, where you will have a channel for your team that you can use to coordinate your efforts. If you don't already have Slack, now would be a good time to download the client for your computer and or your phone. We highly recommend that you use Google Drive. That's what we use. It's simple. Most people have a Google account of some kind, so it's easy to coordinate document production and change control. If you need any help setting that up, please contact us. We can help walk you through that. Similarly, even though we are using Zoom today, we tend to use Google Meet for our day-to-day collaboration meetings and conference calls. Again, if you're having any trouble getting Google Meet set up, well, there's not really anything set up, frankly, other than having a Google account, let us know. But we think it's an excellent free service that'll help you to collaborate in real time. It's nice to have a video window where you've got something that you can display while people are working in a Google Doc, taking notes at the same time. In your, and by the way, this is all, of course, in your orientation packet, all of this information with links. I strongly urge you to listen to a podcast series called The Next Step, which was done by a local entrepreneur coach by the name of inidivuals. It's a really excellent primer on the steps you take to build your startup. It's a very valuable resource. He's a really fun, engaging speaker, and they're short. They're short little podcasts, 5-10 minutes, extremely valuable. Looney is one of the best known social enterprise entrepreneurs in the Pacific Northwest, and frankly, around the world at this point. He is the founder of the Fledge Accelerator and a bunch of other really exciting projects. I can't urge you too much to check out all of those resources. There are, before we open it up to questions, I do want to cover some of the questions that a few of you have actually already asked. One is in terms of your experience level. Some people are worried they don't have enough experience to do this program. This program is designed to give you the experience. This is the experience that you want to get. So don't worry about that. You're gonna get the tools and support, and you're gonna find wonderful people to work with to make something really cool happen. So no experience required. If you don't have an idea yet, don't worry. It's good to brainstorm. Think about the things that you love to do. Really, if there's one piece of advice for you to find a good idea, make it something related to things that you really love doing, because you'll be more interested in becoming expert at it, and you'll stick with it better. If you listed one particular idea or a set of ideas in your registration form, you are not locked into that. You are not locked into anything until you submit your final deliverables on Monday, November 23rd. So you can change your mind about anything all the way up to there. I would highly recommend that you home in on your idea next week, but some of you will probably find that as you begin examining the market fit potential for your idea and looking at penciling out the basic financials, yeah, that idea might not be as great as you thought it was, and you might need to leave it behind, and you might need to pivot to find a new idea. I'd be very surprised if this doesn't happen to at least several teams in this program. And this, again, is part of the entrepreneurial process. Don't worry about it. Just work on finding a new idea. You'll get there. We had a question about the minimum number of people on a team. I think that by definition, the minimum number of people on a team would be 2. I don't think you can technically have a team of only 1. Hopefully none of you will be in the position of being a team of 1, because first of all, this is a lot of work for one person to make their way through. So we desperately want to get you matched up, and we will be working overtime to make sure that happens. But if you just find 2 people and you are driven and you've got an idea, there's no reason you have to have more than 2. So that's the answer to that question. Nominally, we would like your teams to top out no greater than 5. Some of the teams that have been around for a while actually have more than 5. The reason for the number 5 was just to encourage you to really get all of your team members actively participating. And just from past experience, we found in other competitions that you get too many people, sometimes you get a few people that are kind of hanging out, not really helping out. There's 5 people. That's a good size to get all these tasks done. And it's also a good size for making decisions quickly enough for you to parse this program on time. We will have, for any teams that want coaching on the production of their 5-minute video, whether it is figuring out the editing programs, or how do you encode it to an MP3, how do you do a voiceover, that kind of thing. We already have one coach for that, and he is our video and media production expert within our team, Adam Kubota, who is on this call tonight. In fact, he is recording our backup of this workshop to make sure that we have recording no matter what happens. So if you guys need support in that area, as if you need support in any area, please contact us sooner than later, and we will hook you up so you can get the resources you need. Those are all the questions that we had in advance of the call. I'd like to open it up generally to questions, and I guess on Zoom we don't really have we have the raise hand thing? No, we don't. It's a different platform. But I guess if you have a question, just unmute yourself, or you can chat it either way. Yeah, let us know what your questions are. And it can be about anything logistical, anything really about the program. The number of teams participating, that was in, which slide was that? We've got 14 teams, so 18 teams so far with 14 individuals. We would expect, hopefully the 14 people maybe get another couple teams out of that and other people go into existing. We'll have about 20 or 21 teams by the time I think it's all said and done.
I have a question. Our team was going to the idea board last week, and we're just trying to figure out how, for our ideas, how unique do you want them to be? Is it okay for them to already exist, or are you really trying to have a unique idea that's not out there yet?
Got it. Oh, this is a great, I'm so glad you asked that question, because I think a lot of people agonize over this unnecessarily. So the short answer is no, doesn't have to be unique at all. In fact, your idea could be a highly successful company on the other side of the world, or the other side of the country, or the other side of the state. The idea is that you are working on a project that is a zero waste topic, and want to make something real happen and move forward. Some of the best ideas are other people's models that just don't exist in your area yet. There's a lot of room for implementing really cool projects all across the spectrum of sectors in zero waste all around the world. And we need them all. So yeah, don't worry about that at all. I would also point out, it is fiendishly difficult to come up with an actual original idea about just about anything. So whenever anybody comes to me with their brilliant, brand new, totally original idea, the first thing I ask them to do is go do some research on it for a couple hours to figure out who's already doing it. And most of the time, 9 times out of 10, somebody already is. So don't worry about that aspect at all. Yeah. We just want you to find an issue that you connect with, that you want to make something go. Yeah, that's it. All right, do we have any others? Okay, I think we're there. Wow, and we did start just under 60 minutes ago, so I guess we got the timing right. Okay, so as Xenia showed you earlier in the final slide of the deck, our contact info is out there. It's in your orientation packet. Feel free to reach out. You also have a phone number for me. If it's something urgent, you can call that number any time of the day. I'll tell you, it is screened, so you may not get me at 4 in the morning, but you will get me when I wake up and check my messages. So there's that. We will be getting out the information for matching you into teams as soon as possible, and we're hoping to get you all up on Slack in the next 24 to 48 hours as well, so you can begin using that tool. And if we don't, oh wait, we have a hand raise. Oh, that's the hand raise. Okay, good. Jeremy? Is that what that means? I think that's what the
yes, sorry.
Blue hand means. Okay, what's your question?
Yeah, sorry. So I guess it's just thinking ahead, but will at any point we receive a like a breakdown of what we will be judged on?
Oh yes. Yeah. I forgot to mention that. We are actually wrapping up the details on that. We were discussing that earlier, and it's pretty ready. In general, I can tell you that it's going to be based on the weekly sessions that you're receiving training on. So you're going to be judged on the market opportunity and fit, penciling out and basic financials. You're going to be judged on how you tell the story. You're going to be judged on how you present the story. There's also going to be a section points for social enterprise. How does this work as a social enterprise? As a triple bottom line company. You're going to get judged on the overall impression. Those are probably the alpha and omega of the criteria at this point. But yeah, we're just wrapping that up, and we are going to get that out to you as well. It's going to be generally available to you, and you will want to write to these criteria, obviously. But you guys are, you know, at the university level, you know this game. If the professor tells you this is what the exam is going to be on, that's what you need to study. These are the things you need to write your presentation to.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Cool. You're welcome. All right. Any other questions? All right, I think we're done. Thank you very much, everybody. We will see you all on Monday evening, 7 p.m. Check your orientation packet for the link to that session.
Nice to meet you, everyone.
Thank you. Nice to meet you too. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good weekend, everyone. Bye.